I kind of already hinted at it. I might as well stay in the Big Ten West, and I believe you had some notes on this man as
Yep.
well. We made a joke that could be potentially that I didn't think this would be the case coming into the year, but just the way that they have started Big Ten play. And I'm talking about PJ Fleck.
Yeah.
So PJ Fleck, to be fair, has been prior to this season been really, really good at Minnesota. You talk about 3 out of the last 4 years prior to this one, they won 9+ games. 2019, they had that kind of magical year where they went 11-2, won their first New Year's Day bowl since like the 1940s, like pre World War II. And they rewarded PJ Fleck in December of last year. 7 years, 7 year extension worth up to $42 million or 7 million or six. Yeah, I think about a little over $6 million per
Yep.
year. Um, and look, he's also another thing too. He's beaten Wisconsin 3 out of the last 5 years. Prior to him coming, Minnesota had lost Wisconsin 14 years in a row. He's kind of restabilized that rivalry, but this season has not gone great. I think there was some optimism heading in for Minnesota, especially with Ethan Callie McManus, the Greek rifle. That he finally started last year. He was a 4-star guy out of Illinois. That hey, he could be what Tanner Morgan was in 2019. They brought in have Daniel Jackson, Corey Crooms was a big transfer get that they got at wide receiver, and it has just been bad, man. I mean, they're 3-3. Every team that they've kind of played this year with Pulse, North Carolina, they got crushed. You look at this past weekend, we'll get into this, but it is really, really tough. And I actually looked up this stat, and it kind of surprises me. I know Minnesota likes to run the football, but man, oh man, this just seems like this is completely on purpose, that they're just trying to outrun everybody. Their last 3 games, they have ran it 71% of the time. 71% of their plays have been run plays. The
Yeah.
only 3 teams higher in that stretch are service academies.
Wow.
With, I believe, Air Force being number one, who runs it about 78% of the time. And like even this past week in their game against Michigan, they lost by 42 points. You would think they would throw it more just because they were out of this game right away. They only threw the ball 16 times, including one of them was, I think, like a halfback or a wide receiver pass. So their quarterback, Ethan Callie McManus, was 5 of 15 for like 50 yards in the game. And this is coming from PJ Fleck, who, going all the way back to Western Michigan, has been able to develop wide receivers. He was a wide receiver coach before becoming a head coach. Corey Davis was a top 5 pick that he developed at Western Michigan.
Rashad
Rashad
Bateman.
Bateman, Tyler Johnson were both NFL draft picks. And it's not like these guys were middling 3-star guys that they were able to identify and develop. Chris Bell has had his moments, things like this. They have guys there, and I just don't understand the offensive philosophy. And now their defense has regressed this season too, and the offense hasn't gotten any better. And look, I don't think they're going to fire him by any means, and I think he's worth the benefit of the doubt to trust that he can kind of turn this around. But with everything coming into play, with the West Coast teams coming into the Big Ten, getting rid of divisions, you can't win like this. I think Iowa's figuring that out right now. I think Wisconsin is trying to get away from just running like the 3 yards in a cloud of dust thing. You cannot win in modern college football at a high level anymore. And I think they found that out this week against Michigan, who was kind of that way years ago before Harbaugh somewhat adjusted and kind of modernized their offense too.
Well, and that's a really good point, right? Is you just kind of look at the traditional Big Ten model has been recruit big and beefy offensive. I mean, it's the Wisconsin model, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get the skill talent that some of the other programs will get, but if you can be physical and run the ball and all this, I mean, you look at the numbers, like Minnesota is averaging 132 yards per game this year on the through the air. They're averaging 180 on the ground. They have 8 rushing touchdowns this year and 6 passing touchdowns this year. I mean, they just, Ethan Callan McManus. There were people, I think, around college football that did have a lot of high expectation for him. It just hasn't really come out. I mean, they have a really good true freshman running back, Darius Taylor. PJ Fleck's already come out and had some kind of odd comments about that. He's like, well, if we don't improve our NIL game, we're going to lose Darius Taylor, and that's never a good sign. But then you also look at PJ Fleck. I mean, 9-4 in 2022, 9-4 in 2021, 2019, 11-2. Like, I mean, that's pretty damn good for Minnesota. And I know that Minnesota fans don't want to hear that. And we're friends with one very, very boisterous Minnesota fan who feels a certain way about PJ Fleck. But, Gary Parrish hosts the Eye on College Basketball podcast. And he said something that I kind of taken to heart. He goes, your first 3 or 4 years as a head coach, your results are compared against your predecessors. So if your predecessor was 5 or 6 wins with Jerry Kill and you're winning 7, 8, 9, great, like you've exceeded that. After that, after your next 3 or 4 seasons, you're compared with your previous. Like you're not compared with 10 years ago what your results were. So Minnesota, like if I were to tell a Minnesota fan, like PJ Fleck's 47-30. Now he's 27-28 in the Big Ten, right? So again, it's a lot of 3-0 non-conferences. I understand that, right? They haven't won the Big Ten West, and they're probably not going to this year. And then you have Oregon and Washington and USC entering next year. The buyout for PJ Fleck's $27 million. $23.7 million. So I don't know what they do. I mean, they are 3-3. They still have to play Iowa. They still have to play Ohio State. I mean, I think 6 wins is realistic for them. You still do get Purdue and Illinois, but this team lost to Northwestern.
Yeah.
We were up 34-10 or something in that game.
Like 31-10 in the fourth quarter.
I mean, because you're right. Any team they play with a pulse. They beat Eastern Michigan. They beat Nebraska week 1, but they played awful in that game. They scored 13 points against Nebraska. So I don't really know how I feel about Fleck. I don't know if I have very strong opinions on PJ Fleck. I think he has elevated that program to a T, but at some point it just gets stale. At some point, people get tired of the same thing. Like, it's really hard to be a Mike Gundy, a Kyle Whittingham, like whatever it is. Like, it's hard to stay at the same place for like 15 years. It just is.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Especially this style that they play. Like, when it is working, you can tolerate it, you can live with it. You're like, well, this is what we got to do to win. But when it's not working, it is really, really hard to watch. And then it's also hard when you're getting beat 52-10. And I just want to make a slight note on Michigan. They scored 52 points on 56 plays. That is incredibly tough to do. And I guess kudos to them for being remarkably efficient and almost averaging 1 point for every play that they ran last night against Minnesota.
Right. All right, I'm going to talk about Eli Drinkwitz from the Missouri Tigers. Fun fact about Eli Drinkwitz, Lucas. He